The Trump administration should lose. This had to have been concocted up by the Trump PR people. I'm guessing this was someplace in the deep recesses of the brain of Stephen Miller, that somehow he came up with this. The legal people would have told him not to do it. But of course, it doesn't matter to Donald Trump. He wants the soundbite. Look, it was part of the Alien Sedition Acts. They were passed in 1789 by the Adams administration, the Federalists. It was a big reason why John Adams lost that election to Thomas Jefferson, who promptly did not ever enforce those acts again. They were enforced in the War of 1812 and World War I, but in World War II, they were enforced as part of the justification in interring Japanese Americans in concentration camps, which is a disgraceful episode in American legal history, and everybody now recognizes it as such. So the fact that they're doing these old statutes that have been discredited is one thing. The other thing is the statutes themselves say that it's only in time of war that these things apply. The United States was in a quasi-war with France back in 1789. And then, of course, the other three examples are actual wars. This is not a war. The government of Venezuela is not planning to invade the United States of America. So this is just an absurd application of a discredited statute.
Okay, well then are there other legal means through which you could see the administration accomplishing the same goal, though? They are saying that these are criminals that they are deporting, people who have inflicted harm or, in their words, terrorized Americans. Is there no actual legal mechanism to deport them through alternative means other than the Alien Enemies Act?
Well, of course there is. Now, first of all, they are saying they provided no proof. They haven't even provided the names of these young people who are being deported. So we don't know whether they are not. For all we know, they could march in and arrest the two of you and deport you now under this statute, saying that you're somehow, enemy aliens. There is no control on this, and that's why the statute's discredited. So there's nothing really to show that these are actual criminals. Now, criminals, people who committed crimes, are specifically deportable. The statute's 8 U.S.C. 1227. And the administration has plenty of scope to do that, as the Biden administration did and the Obama administration did. They've always prioritized the deportation of criminal aliens, undocumented criminals. This rhetoric that, Biden let all these rapists and murderers in is simply a lie. This rhetoric that other countries are emptying their jails, that is a lie. That goes back to the Mariel boat people in Cuba way, way back. During, I think it was either the Carter or Reagan administrations. It is simply absurd, and he perpetuates this lie to do something which is a blatant violation of the Constitution.
Well, we heard from the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, saying the order was invalid, the judge's order. She wrote, quote, "A single judge in a single city cannot direct the movements of an aircraft carrying foreign alien terrorists who were physically expelled from U.S. soil," unquote. Weigh in on that as you choose, Robert. But is this going to the Supreme Court?
Oh, I think it very likely will go to the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court has already said about the Alien Sedition Acts in 1964 in the New York Times versus Sullivan that the acts have never actually gone to the court, but they have been rebuked in the court of history. In other words, the court of history said that they've always been viewed as suspicious and unconstitutional. So that's the premise in the first place. The application here is absurd. Yeah, it will go to the Supreme Court. This argument about a single judge, that's just the way it works. He issues a temporary injunction that can be appealed in order for the courts to hear the actual merits where the administration can make its case. Nobody's being treated unfairly here at all. And by the way, the Trump administration and kind of the allies of Trump had no problem going down to a judge in the Southern District of Texas, who was the only judge there, to have all of its little things heard to try to enjoin the Biden administration from some of its immigration policies. That's simply how the system works, and they are just defying it. And John Holman seems to be enjoying defying it.
Well, speaking of the Biden administration, Robert, at the very, very end of it, really the last minutes of his presidency, a series of pardons were issued for those affiliated with the January 6th investigation in Congress who are doing that work. President Trump is now arguing, and this is a quote, that those pardons are void, vacant, and of no further force or effect, saying this is because the president used an auto pen to sign them. He hasn't presented any evidence of that. But where do you come down on the argument that it actually nullifies pardons, which are seen as one of the absolute powers of the presidency?
The Constitution says the pardon shall be vested in the President of the United States. It doesn't say how that's affected. In different years, it's been affected in different ways. I mean, I suppose you could go back to the 1700s when they actually just used a seal instead of a signature to give the pardon. So I think that's simply absurd that they're arguing that the manner of signature is somehow a problem. I mean, frankly, if the president wanted to roll it up and put it on the claw of a passenger pigeon and send it out by pigeon, that's perfectly fine. Nothing in the Constitution prohibits that. Biden signed these pardons and that's it. But you should also look at an eye to the politics. If the Trump administration seriously wants to go after Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger and all those other people and Fauci, I mean, that would be a public relations nightmare for the Trump administration, because I think these people have backbone and they are perfectly happy to stand up to the whatever absurd charge that Donald Trump and Pam Bondi would concoct in their brains to go after them.